DMR. Also, I am a managing partner of DMR. I have over 15 years of experience in all versions of Dynamics, Axapta, and AX. Also, I am Microsoft certified or a certified trainer over 10 years. And I have a blog and YouTube channel about Dynamics. I am trying to create both Turkish and English content over there. You can follow me with my social media. And let's start, right, Raz? Do you have anything to say?
Thank you so much, Fateh. Over to you.
Okay, let's start. Today, when I start to prepare this session, I realize I choose one of the hardest topics because it's a very basic topic and simple, but it needs 4 or 5 days to cover all area, and I had only 1 hour. So I want to create the most beneficial content for this session. So I will talk about architecture and developer tools, and then I will do a well-prepared demo for you. My goal today is to create an image of development process for you and encourage you to deep dive and progress in software development. It's a very good area, and all my professional career went by this, and I am very happy about that. So let's start because we don't have much time. Okay. First of all, Visual Studio is the integrated development environment that is used for all finance and operation development. As a developer, you will work in your own development environment with access to Visual Studio. Enables you to access all developer tools and components, including Azure DevOps, which is our source control. And we have a file-based structure right now in Dynamics 365. Elements, models, and packages represent the structural hierarchy in Visual Studio for finance and operations. Elements either exist out of the box in the Application Explorer in Visual Studio, or they can be created. Elements are metadata and source files such as base enumerations and tables. Models contain 0 or more elements. All models belong to packages, which can be packaged together and create deployable package and then deployed by using lifecycle services. A deployable package contains 1 or more multiple packages. It has a file-based structure, as I said, and I will show you in my development VM. Let's continue. Yes, we have a source control right now. In previous version, we had source controls, but most of the project didn't use this source control functionality, but it's now mandatory. So we have Azure DevOps. Developers rely on source control to track code changes and discern differences among content that is created by various developers. Finance and operation use Azure DevOps for source control. We are using Team Foundation services. Git is not defaultly supported, but I see a lot of projects using Git. I'm not suggesting that right now, but in the future, probably we have Git also. And Azure DevOps is a cloud-based service. And the Lifecycle Services is a tool that aids developer and project manager to manage a life cycle of finance and operation project. It has lots of functionalities, and it's important for us, especially we deploy our development VM through lifecycle services. We can deploy our code to production and UAT environment through lifecycle services. It's a mandatory tool right now for us to maintain our project, and there are lots of sessions about lifecycle services, so I am not going to dive into lifecycle services, but as I said, it's a very important tool and you need to understand the basics of lifecycle services. Let's continue. I took this slide from Application Lifecycle Management Fast Track presentation. This is a very important slide. You need to understand this process as a developer. First phases, develop, build, and deploy. And, we will focus on develop phase today. In develop phase, we have dev VMs, and dev VMs we are building our features and send to the source control, Azure DevOps. Then Azure DevOps and build VM makes builds and application deployable packages and send them this to lifecycle services. Then lifecycle services send these deployable packages to UAT and production environment. This is our application lifecycle, and we are focusing on develop phase of this right now. Let's talk about some thing. All developers should have own DevOps license for login. 5 of the license is free. Most of the time it's enough, but if you need more, you can buy it. Also, all developers should have own developer VMs, and all developers should have Visual Studio license. Also, do reference a feature work item with each check-in, because if you have multiple branch, it's very hard to track these changes. So be careful about that. Also, because one version, also the other things you need to consider: writing automated testing using test framework. Also, you consider using test-driven development techniques. It's now a very important subject. Let's continue. Okay. Do not developers hold their changes in development machine, because development machines, DevVMs, can be disposable. If there is a problem about your VM, you can deploy another one very easily. So don't hold your code and back up your code in development VM. Use shell or suspend or XPO window, but don't rely on your development machine too much. Don't use multiple developers same machines. Also, don't use same logins, other DevOps logins, because you cannot trace your code. Also, do not check-in changes for multiple features in single check-in. It's also very important, because if you do that and you have a complex branching strategy, you cannot separate these features, and it's not good. Also, do not use Visual Studio create deployable packages. And if you do that, probably the experience guide make fun of you. So be careful about that too. So, a day in the life of developer. If you have a automatic shutdown and opening RDP, probably in the morning your development VM will be opened, and you will RDP to connect the development VM. You need to perform get latest in version control, because in the night or previous day there may be some changes, so you need to be up to date. And then you will develop your feature, and then talk to your business user or consultant and test this feature in your developer VMs. And then if it's okay, you will check in your code to version control and which feature is complete. Of course, then you have probably bug fixing a lot. So this is the life of a developer. Of course, it seems very simple, but when you start, you will see there are lots of different things to consider, and it's a challenging job. It's not easy. It's not hard also, but it's fun, I think. So let's continue with our demo. So when we talked to Raz, he said, I need a feature to manage my environment, my session. We need to store our event speaker, and it's best way to do in Dynamics, right? It's our product. So I prepare this data structure for event management feature. We have event table, speakers, and event speakers. we have enums, extended data types, and we have some functionality. And now I want to go to my environment. This is the Visual Studio 2017. You know, we are using 2017 right now. In Visual Studio, you need to run with administration right, and then create a new project, finance and operation project. Let's create EMR event. We can add to source control from here, but for this project, let's continue without it. You know, Visual Studio and your development machine sometimes is very slow, especially first openings. You need to open your VM maybe half an hour before you start to work. So now we have, let's close this one. Now we will start with develop our feature. First of all, you need to create your extended data types and enums. Let's start with our extended data type enum. I am adding new item. Here is my items. Let's start with enums. We had, sorry, add event status enum. Enums, we need elements. I'm creating new elements. First, always must be none. It's a best practice. And we have what created. Also confirmed. So done, and of course I need to write labels. If you have multiple language, probably you need to use labels, but for time issue, I will not use label here. Also, I need to set up the label of this enum. Now my enum is ready. Let's create the second one. The same process. I am creating this one, and this was event speaker status. Also, I need new elements here. Let's make this one to none again. Created. And last cancelled. Again, let's set the labels. And also we need this one. Okay, now our enums are ready. Let's continue with our first table, event table. I am adding new item again. And now it's a table and DMR event table. At DMR event table, I need an event ID. I can create an extended data type for that. Let's create an extended data type for our event. I have two options. I can create string extended types and integer extended data types. Now I will create a string because I want to use smart keys. Maybe in the future I want to create number sequence for this one. So I will create string extended data type. Extended data types property, let's set event ID, and string size is 10. It's enough for us right now. Let's go back to our table, and in our table we have event ID, and I am dragging and dropping my extended type, and it's best practice to delete this. Prefix is a best practice to use. But if my table start with DMR, it's not suggested to start your fields with suffix. So I delete this one. Now I have subject, description, event date, and status. Status here, let's drag and drop our event status here. Also, I will delete this one. Now I can drag and drop from standard extended data types like subject. For subject, I can use, for example, name, and I can change this to subject. Of course, I need to change label. For description, I have description. I can use this to here, and I have event date. So for event date, I can use trans date and changed this to event date. Okay, let's. Now I created all necessary fields to our table. Now let's look at the properties. First of all, I need an index for this table. Let's create a new index, and this is event IDX, and I am dragging and dropping my field to this index, and I created an index. In previous version, this was automatically yes, but now it's automatically no. So I want to be this index to be allow duplicate no. So I'm not changing anything. And the properties of fields, we have lots of properties here, but the most important ones: mandatory, allow edit, and allow edit on create. This is a primary key, so it must be mandatory, and it must not allow edit true. But allow edit on create, yes, because I want to edit, I want to enter record in first time. And let's look at our table properties. In the table property, we have labels. We need sorry about that. We need to enter our table name and title field, and let's just subject. Also, we have cache lookup. It's one of the most important properties. If you have, it's a very long topic, but let me explain you this way. If you have a table with a very high volume of transaction, you need to set none on non-TTS. And if you have a table like countries, etc., the transaction is very limited. You can choose entire table. So for events, we can choose found. It's the main table for us. And now we have another. We have a primary key for our table, so I am changing my primary key. Also, with table group, it's we can choose main because the event table is a main table for us. And also I want to track created by and created date like this. So if I choose like this, it will automatically add the 4 fields for us, and it will manage by framework. Now my table is ready, but we missed something. You know, we created an event ID, and the event ID represents this event table's event ID. So I need to say this reference here, like this. And also I need to create a new reference and like this. Now I reference my event ID extended data type to event table event ID field, and whenever I use this extended type, it will reference to this table. It's a very important and very useful tool, and it gives lots of advantages to a developer. So let's create other tables. We have to create DMR speakers, and let's create this one. I am adding new table again. In this table, we have 3 fields. We have name. This is speaker name, and we have title. For title, we can use description. And say also maybe some contact information like email. Okay, now it's enough. I don't have any speaker ID for that table because I want to use record ID as a primary key, and I want to show speaker's name to all the other tables. For that, I need to create new index, MIDX, and I need to drag drop this one. Also, I need to select this is an alternative key. It's very important to choose this one. Now, let's choose this as a mandatory field, and let's change speakers. Also enter some title fields. This is also a main table, so I can choose this one. I will not change cluster index or primary index because I want to use rec ID as a primary index. Let's change this one too, but this one I need to set replacement key from here. Yes. I choose name ID for replacement key. Now we have 2 tables, and I need to create a third table about event speakers. I will relate events and speakers together with this table, but first I need to create an extended data type. Let's create this one. This will be this type, and reference the speaker's rec ID, and now let's create this one. In property section, I need to select speakers. Also, I need to create reference to rec ID. Okay, this is the integer extended data type, and it references DMR speaker rec ID directly. So I will show you how to use this one too. Now we have speakers, and event table, we need event speakers right now. Let's create another table. Okay, in event speakers, we need speakers ID, event ID, and subject, description, and status. But before doing that, let's synchronize this and create these tables, because if I don't synchronize, it will not create reference for us. So first, start synchronize this one. In this table, synchronization is not complete yet. Let's wait for a second. Okay. While we are waiting, let's talk about this one, tables properties. Because we don't have much time, I didn't talk about all these properties, but we have field groups. You can create a field group in your table and drag and drop your fields to this field group, and you can use these field groups in forms. And whenever you want to add a new field to this field group, it's automatically adds to these forms, and it's a very easy way to use. Also, we have index and we have full text index. Full text index means you have large text files like CVs or some writings, etc. You can search in these long texts. We have relations. Of course, we will create relation to speakers and event in this table. Also, we have delete action. For example, if I delete an event table, what happens with related event speakers? We will set this in this section. We have state machine and mapping. Let's not talk about that too. It's not beginning level of things, but we have methods. You know, all the tables in X++ is actually a class. So we have methods. Also, we have methods to override. I will talk about the most important methods here, but there are lots of methods and properties. You need to deep dive in the development process for that. Yeah, the synchronization is complete. Let's start to create our event speaker table. First of all, I need event ID. Let's drag and drop this one and delete this one. Also, I need speaker. It's automatically asked me to create a foreign key relation. Yes, create, and it's best practice to use tables names here because it represents the DMR speakers. Also, we have status here. Let's use this one. Also, we have subject and description. For subject, we can use, again, description. It's not. Let's set this one. And let's say this is mandatory, and let's create a new index. For example, event ID X. We don't have any unique index here because some one speaker can speak more than once at the same event. So we don't have any unique index here. Maybe if we can add a subject, we will have a unique index, but it's not necessary. It depends on your data. So let's give the table. Let's choose not in TTS, and maybe table group is transaction. It's not, but let's choose like this. It's not important. Now we created all the related tables and extended types and enums. Of course, we need to create more than that. We need to create, for example, in event table a delete action. Let's create, for example, a delete action. We need to choose, for example, event. Now, let's choose this property. If I choose cascade, it will delete all event. If I delete event table, it will delete event speakers too. So I want this one. If I restrict it, it will not delete if there is a related record in event speakers table. If case is restricted, it will not. It will ask and it will not delete also. So let's use cascade for this delete action. Now we created our data structure. For this, we need to. Sorry. Now we created our data structure. Let's continue to create user interface because we need to interact with this feature with user interface. So let's start to create new forms. I am adding new items here. In user interface, I am creating new forms. Let's create first event table form. I can use the same name here. In forms, we have data source, methods, and design. First of all, you need to determine your data source. Is our first data source is event table, and we have patterns here. You can apply lots of different patterns from this. And if you apply pattern, you will follow the pattern structure. But for demo purpose, I don't have much time to apply all these, so I just create an action pane and new button group, and I will add a new grid only. And this grid, I will drag and drop my fields. I have lots of fields here. Let's choose all of them and drag to grid. And let's organize this one. I want this one. I don't need table ID and data area ID and rec ID partition. Let's delete this one. And it's good. Let's look at some properties. First of all, you need to have a caption, events. Also, it's best practice to set the title data source. Now it's almost ready. I know it's a very simple structure, but it will show us a list of events, so it's enough for us right now. Let's continue with other forms. I am creating another form for speakers. Again, I will drag and drop my data source here. Let's add, let's add an action pane. and new button group and new grid. Also, I will drag and drop these fields. Let's choose like this. Okay. Yes. Let's go to properties. Again, let's choose the title data source. Now it's ready, speakers ready. Let's create the third form for us. Again, for event speakers, I am adding my data source. Also, I am creating action pane. Let's again a grid and yes. Let's set up some properties again. And title data source. Now we created 3 of our forms. For adding this form to menu, we need a menu items for each of them. So let's create a new menu item for this one. Again, in the user interface, we have 3 types of menu items. Displays for forms, actions for classes, and outputs for reports. So we will use a display menu item. So let's create a new one. In menu item property, we need to set object and object type. Object type is form. Let's choose our. And also we need a label here. Now let's create another one. Again, display menu item. Again, the properties. Okay. Now let's create the last one. You can select from here. Okay. Now we created 3 of our menu items. Now we need to add these menu items to a menu. Menu is from here. Let's look at our user interface and menus. We can add, for example, any place related to your feature, of course, but our feature is not related to any of this. Maybe you can choose organization, administration, etc. But let's add account payable, for example. For adding a standard object, editing a standard object, you need to use extension. So I will create a extension for this one, and it will automatically add this to my here. And let's create a new submenu and let's create now. Let's drag and drop our 3 display menu items to here. Now it's almost ready. I want to show one last thing for you. Let's add a button to event here. Sorry, event speaker here. Okay. Here I want to add a speaker button and event button. Let's use our event speakers menu item and drag and drop to our button group here. When I drag and drop, it will automatically create a new menu item button for us, and this will automatically open our VMware event speakers form. Okay. Now let's build our project and see what happens. I'm building from here. Sometimes it takes time to build in first time, but when you do one or more time, it will be more faster. And let's wait. Sorry. Build is complete. Let's synchronize again because we add a new table. If you not synchronize your project, it probably won't work in the runtime. Also, you can choose when you run, it can be automatically synchronize your project, but its make is very slow, so I don't want to use that functionality. Okay. So I'm still waiting to be synchronization complete. At that time, let me check the question. I think you're asking what is moving these to. I am using, let's stop, then I will show you. I am using my keyboard control to move objects from one place to one place, but you can use your mouse to move objects. For example, I can choose like this, or let's close this one. If I want to move something, I can use Control. There are lots of shortcut key, and if you want to learn this, I will share the shortcuts. And you know, I am using the shortcut is very limited because I developed almost 15 years in old version, and I am still have lots of customers in old version. Sometimes it's difficult to convert all your knowledge to new one to old one, but Visual Studio has lots of shortcuts, and you can use them too. So our validation is complete. Let's run the project and see what happens. Okay, we have some error. I think I did some spelling mistake. Let me run again. Okay, sorry. Because when I try to run my project, I need a startup object, and right now I don't set any startup object, and it's asked me what's your startup object. So let's set this menu item as a startup object and start running. Sorry, I forgot to tell you that. Now it's opening. Okay, this is my event table form. Let's look at our account payable menu. Now we have event management here. Now event speakers and event speakers. When I click the event, I have new event here. Let's edit and give some data. Oops. Maybe event day today, and that is created, etc. Now I can create another one. These are not mandatory, so it's enough to use this one. Let's create a speaker. Important. Create another one. It's not important. No. Let's create event speaker here. Here's the magic works here, and let's edit. Because we didn't create a relation with event ID, event speakers, and event table, we don't have any lookup here. I will show you how to do that, but we need to write with hand right now. But because it's automatically created the relation to event speaker, we have a lookup here, and as you can see, it automatically shows the name. When I choose this one, it will automatically shows the name. But when I look at the event speaker table in table browser in data, I will show only rec ID. I will see only rec ID. But when I look at from form and user interface, I will see the name. So it's called alternative key and replacement key. So it's best practice to use, because string primary keys is not suggested for performance issues. So probably you will use this kind of relation to all your development. But if the data is not huge, and if you think there will be no performance issue, you can use string IDs. And when you use string ID, be careful about length and format. And so let's go back to our application and add some new features. First of all, the lookup, why the lookup isn't working. Let's go back to our event speaker table. We have event ID here, but we don't have any event relation, so we need any new relation to event table. Let's select event table here, and when I select and I need to create a normal relation, and normal relation I need to select event ID here, also event ID here. This means DMR event speakers event ID related to event table event ID. So after that, we will see automatic lookup for event ID. Also, I created some features for this module, but because of timing, I don't want to create all of them one by one. Let's look at another environment I did here before. So it's basically same application I created here, but I add some functionality. First of all, for example, for tables, I created, let's look at this table. I created some methods. For example, I created an init value method. In init value method, when I create a new event, I want to set event status to created. So I set this one. Also, I create a find method. This is a very standard method for X++. It finds the primary key record. Also, I add some functionality. I add two classes. First, it's copying the event. It's this one. When you click this button, it's asks you a new event ID and then creates new event table. Also, it will copy the event speaker too. Also, I have a functionality that confirms an event. If I confirm an event, it will automatically change the status to confirm and send the notification to all speakers, like this one. I am selecting all speakers here, and it will send a confirmation email. Of course, I write an info here, but you think it's the email message or something else. So let's look at this project. I add this one to organization administration. We have events here. These are events. And when I click event speaker, I see the speakers here. When I clicked copy event, it will ask me a new event ID. Let's say this one, and it automatically copies the event for us, and it also copies the speakers. And when I confirm this event, automatically it's confirmed this event and shows me the infos. So I think let me see. Okay, lastly, for a developer, developers' last job to create security objects. If you create a project like this, you need to create, first of all, a privilege. And I create a new privilege here. And in this privilege, you need to set your menu items. I drag and drop my menu items here, and in menu items, I select access load as a delete. So it's very important to create security objects. When you create these from Visual Studio, it will be a application lifecycle management. So it will be deployed to AOT and production environment like your own code. So it's an important thing to do in Visual Studio. Also, you can do this from your application, but if you do this from your application, it means it's a data, it's stored in database, and it needs some data transfer. So I think the best way to create security objects is using Visual Studio. And also I create a duty for this event management project. So as I said, there are thousands of details when you start to develop a new project. There are lots of things to cover. We didn't talk about any debugging or tracing, catching, etc. There are lots of details, but I am trying to create a input for you. So let's go back to our slides. Lastly, I think I have 4 minutes. I want to give some suggestions, especially new guys here. You must learn an object-oriented programming language because X++ is a very strong object-oriented language, but it has some limitation. So you need to learn at least another object-oriented language like C#, Java, Python, etc. You must know data structure and algorithm very well, because especially ERP is all related to data. You need to be strong at that part. You need to learn source control, Git, TFS. It's not important, but you need to know this one too. And now we are using cloud computing. It's very important to have knowledge over there. Power Platform is one another tool for us right now. You need to know that too. If you want to be a strong programmer in X++, you should know query framework very well. All the things in the forms are related to query, so it's very important. Always consider performance first. Performance is one of the most important key of our features. If it's not working fast, it will not used. So be careful about performance. Read clean code. It's one of the main book I like to suggest. Learn something from test-driven development. I know we especially like me, we are not used any test-driven development features in our old lives, but right now we need to consider this one too, and be aware about best practices. There are lots of best practices. You should learn, also create your own best practices. So let's look at the questions. Sorry.
Hi Fateh, thank you so much for that presentation.
Thank you.
Really,
I hope this was helping, and I try to create content for 1 hour. I know it's a very huge topic, and if there are some experienced guys, they may be bored, but I hope I can make a presentation for new guys and new friends. Also, I'm trying to create more detailed contents in my YouTube channel. You can check out there too.
Fantastic. So the one of the questions so there's quite a few questions here. One of the questions by Sudnik is, what is the target of replacement key?
Target is replacing your rec ID reference to your name. You know, in old version, we only have option to create string keys for smart keys. But if I show, let me show this one. For example, here, let's open this event speaker. From here, I'm seeing these names, but in database, it stores rec ID. So if it's performance-wise very important to use rec ID as a key, but also it's very important to show relative data to user. If I show the user a rec ID, it means nothing to them. So it's best practice to use like this. It's as I said, it's creates a informative data for users.
So one of the questions by Manmohan is when to create a clustered index, when to select an alternate key to yes and replacement key to yes.
Okay. First of all, when if I want to create if I want to use rec ID as a primary key, and I want to show another field like name or description, like a string or information placed to user, I need to use replacement key, and then that time I need to select this one. Let's look at this one. I don't have any ID field here. I have only name, but name is a long string, so it's not a good field to create a connection to other table. So I am using rec ID to create connections, but I am showing name to all user interface. I know this is a little bit tricky part. There are lots of details about this, and I think we don't have much time. If they have further question, I can provide them some links.
Thank you, Fatih. And finally, there's a very large question by Hein. He's provided his contact details, hein.pfeiffer@Decision Inc. I think they're based in South Africa. But anyway, they've asked 3 questions. I don't think you'll have time to answer them, but I'll read them out anyway. Can you advise how to resolve production data related bugs quicker? Currently, a copy of ProdDB has to be copied and restored to locally hosted VM. This is for on-prem, but you can answer for online if you want. Remote attached does not seem to work for the UAT environment. And then the second question was, how can the AXDB be kept small on a development VM? The third question was, can and how can I use a Visual Studio Azure credits to spin up a D365 FinOps development environment for sandboxing apps and solutions? And the fourth question was, as a partner organization, having a cloud development environments per developer, per client, per PU is costly. Can you suggest a more cost-effective approach? There's lots of questions there, Fatih. So I don't expect you to answer them, but a nice little, I guess, round off, I guess, like an end note from yourself would be really nice.
Okay. As you said, we don't have time to answer all these questions, but I will try to write all of them in the chat window. Also, they can reach me in my social media. Also, I will share my email and contact information from chat window. I think we can continue over there.
Thanks. And the reason why is because our next speaker has still not showed up. So Vishal, are you there? We're looking for Vishal. Vishal is supposed to be on next. But Hello, Vishal. Can we hear you? No, there's no contact from Vishal.
Okay, I was thinking I don't have any time, so
yeah. Yeah, so unfortunately, it looks as though Vishal's not online. He's not responded today. I hope he's okay. But he's not responded, so we might be able to use this time just for Q&A amongst the community, not just yourself, Fatih. I know you've already taken some time out today to do your presentation, but if you don't mind, to spend a few minutes to address some of the questions, that would be really, really appreciated.
Of course. Then, first of all, I know these dev VMs can be costly, especially when you are a partner and you have lots of different solutions and you have different VM for all your solution. It's very costly, but we don't have any other options right now. You know, the Microsoft's working as a development tool, which is not required development VM, but they I think couldn't finish all the tests, so there will be a beta version of this tool, but we are not getting that soon. I think we can ask Jorge about that. And the second, you know, these are pay-as-you-go subscriptions, so you can shut down automatically, and also you can use VM size for more suitable your requirements. For example, if you choose a smaller size, it it's become slow, I know, but it's maybe best to use premium storage. You can use small size VM and use premium storage, then it will work faster. There are lots of articles about VM size. I can suggest these articles to you. And lastly, I know we like to work with the actual data. If the actual data is too big, I know it's hard to restore your dev VM with these data, but I think you need to create a demo company for your development, and it's not the it will not the actual transactional data of your company, of course, but it will make your life very easier. And what was the other questions? Let me check. Okay. Lastly, of course, you can use you can use on-premise development environment too, but I used that and I don't like it actually. So I am sticking with the cloud VMs because cloud VMs are more easy to handle and more easy to do things. Also, if there is a problem like for example, the first time when we start to use Visual Studio 2017, there was an error about SSRS reports. So we deployed new ones. We didn't try to find a solution for that. We deployed new development VMs for new version, and it works like a charm. So it's very I know it's costly, but it's efficient to use cloud-hosted environments.
Thank you, Fatih, for that. So I'm hoping Hind is very happy with those answers. So that's really good. So again, Fatih, thank you so much for your session. There was a session by Fade who's saying, thank you for your intro to development. What would you advise for someone who has a finance background and wants to get into AX development?
Okay, first of all, you need to learn programming language basics. You know, this is an object-oriented programming language, actually. Of course, it's related to ERP system too much, but you need to know the basic object-oriented programming language. Also, you need to know algorithm and data structure, especially database systems, because we store all our data in the database, and it's very important to know these details. After that, you need to have a how can I say? If you have a chance to get training, you know, there are MB500 trainings, 5-day trainings, and this training is cover all the related topics for a developer. I suggest to get this development training.
And I think there are some questions on development training as well, like where would you recommend people to learn to start their development training? Are there any resources or anything that you could recommend?
Of course, you know, there are Dynamics Learn. Before we have DLP, but right now it's Microsoft Learn. There are lots of videos and training materials over there, and also some private companies preparing development trainings. As I said, MB500 is the exam, and also it has a related training, and it covers all the related topic. Actually, they can check these trainings. Also, it has a learning path or Microsoft sites. Also, maybe I mentioned before, but I have a YouTube channel and I created a series about, for example, activity management over there. There is, I think, about 40 videos of development process. I will try to add more content over there. Also, there are lots of information in our community page. In community is the main source for all of us, and yeah, that's it.
Right, okay, I've just shared your YouTube channel into the community chat there, Fade, so that you can follow Fatih's YouTube channel on development.
Thank you.
So, right, yeah, and John's saying, also reiterating what you said earlier about the Microsoft Docs and Learn site, although he said that although it's a good read, it's not very useful for actually learning practically, I guess, which is a fair point. Anyway, so look, Fatih, really appreciate your time. The next session, as you know, is unfortunately, due to unfortunate circumstances, Vishal is unable to make it. So what we're going to do, we're going to hang around for just a general Q&A for the next until the next session begins. So that's what we'll be doing for the next half an hour. Is we'll just be having a general Q&A. Probably most likely on development topics, okay. But anything else as well.
I have time. I can be here to answer the question. Also, if they ask about more advanced development, we can continue to our event management project too.
Wow! Look at that. That's an exclusive from Fatih. A live Q&A with Fatih on your questions for development and anything related to that. So I think this is a really good opportunity for the community to use this as a way of generating dialogue and improving awareness, really. So I think okay. So does anybody have any other questions then? Or please feel free to put your hand up if you want to ask a question. So there is a button where you can raise your hand on the top of the Teams channel. So let's see if there's any other questions. I can't see anything yet, but let's wait a few minutes. So for those who missed that, this is a live Q&A. Fatih has kindly offered to lead on the Q&A and be available to answer any questions related to development. So please, now is a great opportunity to ask questions. So you could either drop your questions in the chat or you could raise your hand and we could ask them live.
Okay. I think there is a question about SSRS. SSRS is a little bit different from the Dynamics 365 development. In SSRS you're using expressions, but in Dynamics 365 we are using a real object-oriented programming language. It's a little bit different, but if you have experience with the script language, you can learn an object-oriented language easily, I think. Okay. There's a question again. I don't think we need any separate model for test, but I am not experienced testing too much, so I don't want to be more detailed about that. We had a really good session about testing. I suggest to follow them up, so they have lots of good information. And Okay, there's a question about branching. You know, branching, it's a very important tool. If let me show you one of our, I'm using very basic branching for this project, for example. It's a very simple demo project. For this, I am using new, sorry, I am using only main here. I didn't even change this file structure to branch. The main is enough for me because in this project, no one is, two developers working and they don't work in the same time. But if you have complex requirements, you need at least two branch, one for dev, one for main or release. There are lots of different approaches for branching. I suggest you to watch this branching strategy fast track talks. There are lots of details about that, and there is no best way to use. It's related to your project team, and your company. But there are one rule: make it simple. It's the most important rule is make it simple. If you use more complex branching strategy, it's become nightmare in the future time. So make it simple. Yes, would the Dynamics 365 development have same similarities with AOT in AX 2012? Actually, it's very similar. If you have experience in old version, you can easily convert your knowledge to new one. There are some changes because we changed our IDE because we were using Morphix, and it was a great for me. I like it very much, but we are using Visual Studio right now, and Visual Studio has lots of new features for us. But as you can see, if you because our product is changed, it's now a web-based product, so sometimes building and synchronizing, etc., it's a little bit different, but the main concept is the same. We have extended types, we have enum, tables, classes, forms. They are all same, but of course in details there are lots of changes. The main change for me was Visual Studio, also source control, because in old versions we were not using source control too much. I had maybe 2 or 3 projects which I used source control, but with Dynamics 365 right now it's a mandatory tool to use. So it's the biggest change, I think. Okay.
Right, there was a question by Maris that was asking, would be nice to hear about practical use of column store index.
Column store index is a tool, but there are lots of details about this. Let me look at this one. Sorry about this. Sorry, I lost my screen. So if you have, you can see my screen.
Yes, we can. Fatih, yeah.
I think okay. Column store is an index technology for storing and retrieving data by using columnar data format. Column store is used for lots of different things. Or column store organized as a table with rows and columns and physically stored in a column-wise data format. So it makes sometimes 10 times faster than a standard index, but it has lots. It has its own limitation. So this is a new type of things, but let me show you our index here. For example, if you have this kind of small tables and if you have index like this, and let's look at this, you don't need advanced things. It's enough to use this index because we don't have too much data in this ones. But if you have like ledger trans, cost trans or event trans, this transaction table, it needs lots of different requirements. So indexing is a little bit advanced and there are lots of details. For example, let me look at our event speaker. We have, when I create event speaker index here, I just add event ID, but it needs actually maybe speaker, also maybe subject to here. Maybe subject must be included column like this. And you need to create like this index because when you query this event speaker, you will ask event ID and event speaker, maybe you will get subject. It's important to use included column for retrieving data. What else? I think there are lots of other questions.
Yes, there is a question on HTML, how to modify the JS and HTML code under resources in the customized model.
Okay. For that, we have actually a mechanism. It's I can suggest the article, docs articles to you. We have manage. We have a manage object. We can create new design objects using HTML and scripts. But it has some limitation. I can share this links with you. And someone asked AOT. AOT is here actually. Application Explorer is our AOT right now in Dynamics 365. All the elements are stored in this one, but also it's stored in file-based structure. Let me show the place to you. In your development VM, in this one, we have iOS services. In iOS services, we have packages local directory. In packages local directory, we have all the packages. For example, in the application suite, we have these modules. And let me look at my package. Here is my package and here is my model. And in model, we have all the AOT elements here. For example, we created some enums here, and now you can see from there, or classes, etc. So all your codes and metadata are stored in file-based structure. Also, you can see it from here. Also, we have search windows from here, and you can search all the related elements from here. Also, we have metadata search here. It's a very handy tool. You can search, for example, like cost or event or related to your data. Also, maybe we can show them something from here. We have options here. Before you start your development VM, you need to set this one. For example, I didn't select best practice check because I want to build this environment fastly, but it's you should check this one. Also, project, I like this organized by the project element type. Also, we have text editor options here. You can select these options. If you don't want to see line number, you can check it from here too. Also, here is my model. But if I want to create new model, I can use this to create new model. You can create as you want, but I don't suggest you to create too much because it's sometimes can be confusing. Okay, let me check the questions again.
There's a question on what is the use of full text indexes? How?
Okay.
Yeah.
I see that full text index is for the large text values, as I said, like a resume or article, etc. If you have, for example, EK application and HR application, and you want to search, for example, Dynamics 365 related person, you need to create a full text index for that field. You know, these are huge text infos, and in this text info, if you want to search one key like a real book, you need an index of this. You can create one index for each table. There is a limitation over there, and it is actually a SQL Server property. It provides from there. You can create these fields indexes, and when you search a key for this resume or this article, in this article, it will find very fast for you.
Okay, the next question by Hein is, I have a requirement to extend a SysWizard class to add a tab. Most of the methods were not hookable. Do you have any suggestions how this can be done?
Unfortunately, if it's not hookable, we don't have any option to do that. Probably, if there is requirements met with your requirements met, you can create a new one. You know, sometimes some objects not extendable, and if it's not extendable, we have two options. We can create new ones for this one, or we can ask Microsoft to create an extension point of this feature. But I think for SysWizard, they will not create. So I am not suggesting to do that. Probably using a new wizard is best way to resolve your requirement if it fits your requirement, of course.
Okay, so the next question is, can you tell us about ISV licensing and how to enforce license validations using X++? I know that's a very, very broad question, but I don't know if you've got any insight in that.
I don't have too much experience about that, but I think Andre can answer this very easily, because you know, they they create Turkish localization for us, and they are sending this validation key to us. So, as I said, I am not. I know the process, but detail is not. I don't do this before, so let's ask this to experienced guy.
Cool. So Fade is asking, as a system support administrator, how can they access the AOT as we do in AX 2012 in FinOps?
Unfortunately, they can't. Especially in the live system, we don't have AOT because we don't have code. Actually, it's a web-based product right now. We don't have a development environment over there, so they don't have any access to AOT. But if they want to access table browser, there are some ways to do that. Also, in environments we have debug options. They can see the environment's performance and objects, etc. But they cannot open AOT or something like that, or any development environment in the life of UAT environment. So we don't have these kind of options. Also, we don't have to connect database. We don't have access to database directly.
Okay, so Cameron is asking, what's the best practice to create a deployable package?
It's best practice to use, of course, build pipeline. You can use a build VM or build machine, build system. You don't need to deploy a build VM, but if you have synchronization and test, if you want to, let me show you. If you want to use these steps, you need to have build VMs. This is my build pipeline. In this build pipeline, sorry, let me edit this one. We have lots of steps. For example, in this, I disable tests and execute test and deploy reports because I am not using any report here. But also, if you don't, if you want to disable DB sync from here, you can use build pipeline. You don't need to use build machine for that. But if you want to work these steps, test and DB sync, you need dev VM. For this project, for example, I deploy a dev VM. For example, a daily basis, I just open this one and edit this one. And let's disable this. I disabled the database sync. And after that, let's save this one. And now when I queue this, let's run another one. The build is started here. I can follow it from here. If there is no problem, it probably took 5 minutes to complete. But if I run database syncs and tests, etc., it took almost 20 minutes. After that, it will create a deployable package for me. Let's look at our old deployable package from here. These two artifacts, three published here. One is, this is AX deployable package runtime. When I download this artifacts, I have a deployable package here. Let's look at this one. Okay, now this is downloaded. When I go to my asset library, I can import this to, for example, yes, what's day to day? I'm using day to follow this one, and my session is expired, sorry. again, I am adding this one. Now, upload. Now confirm. Now I add my deployable package to my asset library. This will be validated in soon. Now I can go to my test and make apply updates here. This is my UAT environment. When I write this one, this should be not same. I can select from here. When I set apply, this will be deployed to our UAT environment directly. After UAT is complete, I can deploy this to live environment too, if it is, of course, tested and approved. And it's of course a little bit different from our previous version. We don't have most of the time any application lifecycle management over there. If you are using version control in AX 2012, you have this kind of process too. But if you don't have any process. You are just using XPOs to deploy code to live environment. But right now we have lifecycle services, and I think it's a good place to manage your environments. It's not hard to maintain, and it has lots of advantages. Okay.
Awesome. So the Raja Ranjan was asking if you could. This was to do with the editing the JS and HTML. He was asking for that. I think it's a link. I think it is that he's after.
Yeah. I think it's link. Yes.
Do you have that link that we can share?
I have link, but I need to search.
So okay, got you.
I will share it later.
Share it later. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Right. I think that's all the questions. Just double checking to see if there's anything I've missed. Oh yeah. Well, you've already talked about the branching, and I guess branching is a complex topic because ideally you want to, as you mentioned, Fatih, you need to keep it as simple as you possibly can. Otherwise, you're going to land yourself into some big technical overhead, aren't you?
Yeah. If you have complex branching, one experienced person needs to be maintain all the process. So it's time-consuming thing. If you don't need, you don't get too complicated. Thank you. I think it's important to know all details, but there are lots of things to learn. If you are new at this, especially Dynamics, you should read a lot and practice a lot. Practice it makes perfect. So for me, it's best way to learn is teaching. I have over 10 years experience of training X++. I learn lots of things when I teach. So first learn, try, and teach.
Right. So Cameron's asking, form patterns are mandatory if we use best practice option in Visual Studio. He's asking, is that?
Yeah, not related to best practice. If you, for example, let me open a form for you. If I select or if I apply a pattern here, sorry. Now it's coming. If I apply, for example, simple list pattern here, it will show me this screen. For example, I am missing a custom filter group here. if I didn't add this, it will show me an error. So I have to add this group. For example, let's build this project. You know, on old version, we have templates, and it was easy to use because I can easily duplicate the templates and use these templates to create new forms. But patterns, not like that. Patterns, they don't create any default things, default objects for you. They just suggest you to create these elements. So it's especially for complex form, it's hard to comply all the patterns, but it makes the user interface a standard look. So I suggest you to at least use 5 or 6 of them. They are the most common ones, like this. Let me show you. Okay, let's remove the pattern here. Detail master is, you know, like cost table and event table. Detailed transaction like sales table and purchase table forms. You know, these are the main forms for our application. Simple list is the very common use of list page. Also, we have simple list details. This one is very common used. Also, we have dialogues fields here. These are the most used ones, and I suggest you to use simple list, detail master, and detail transaction, and follow up them. Okay.
There is a question by Leonardi. Hi Fatih, some questions regarding the deployment strategy. I have 2 CRSs, CRS1 and CRS2, both CRs deployed to UAT environment for testing. CR1 failed and CR2 success. What strategy to deploy just CR2 to prod?
Okay, if I get correctly, you can deploy this by your environment, but if I get this question, you have different UAT environment, and if one deployable package is deployed on UAT and there is no problem about testing, you can use this to deploy to your production. But the failed one, you need to go to the testing and development process again, I think, if I get this question correctly.
Thank
no,
you.
No, this page is not absolute. There is another question, but let me show you the page here. Sorry. There are some obsolete things. For example, you cannot change colors on of a element. For example, I think two weeks ago we need a requirement to create a new look for our buttons, etc., and we realized we cannot change background colors or foreground colors to our elements. Before we can do that, for example, for this button, we don't have background option or background color, anything like that. So some design objects changed with with web forms, because in web I think they don't change all the properties with on-premise sites. So there are some limitation in especially design areas. But let's look at this page. For example, account payable, we have all purchase, all vendors. It's a little bit slow. Yes, as you can see, this is actually a list page. When I personalize this, I can see the details here. Sorry. Yes, this is group, this is the vendor. When I look at this to user interface here, for example, let's find from this user interface menu, and this one, as you can see, is a event table list page. So when I opened event table list page, this is the event table list page, and form template is list page, as you can see. Okay. I didn't get the question of Mohammed. Let's talk about it later, Mohammed. I just don't get your question, I think, correctly. Okay. I think we have 10 minutes. So let me show you the codes. While we are doing our demo, we didn't have time to focus on our code. So I created two new classes for this project. One for copying, one for confirming. For this class, I created a main method. Main method is the entry point for a class if I want to use in user interface. Main methods are static, so I set static here. Also gets argument class. Argument is very important in X++ programming too, because it's transfer lots of parameters to the object. For example, in this case, I am using this to call from a form, and this form actually has a record like this. Let's look at our project here. It was in organization administration here, events. When I select a record and confirm event, it means this will send to my class throughout, with argument class. And in the argument class, I can set argument records to my parm method. In parm method, I set the event table buffer. So I will use this one in later. Then I will call the run method. And in the run method, I have a transaction block. You know, a transaction block is used for data consistency. If there's a problem updating the record, it will be rollback our data. It's very important for data consistency. So I am using this one too. And if it's created, if the status of this event is created, I am pointing this status to confirm and update this one. And I am committing my transaction, then send a notification. Send notification method is simple. I have event speakers and speakers. I join these two tables. And I want to send a notification to them for their session is accepted. So I joined them because event speakers don't have a speaker name in the speakers table. So I need speakers table. And in this info, I said, dear Fatih, this email is to remind you that your session has been accepted and the time has been confirmed, and my subject is here. So I send. Of course, this is actually a send mail method. We can write a email sending method here. After that, I create an action menu item for this one, like this. In action menu item, I choose object type class and object in my class, and I add this to my form, event table form here. I drag and drop my action menu item to my button group, and it's create automatically a confirm menu item button. And there are good properties here. For example, auto refresh data property. Before we are writing a data source refresh codes for that, but right now, if you select auto refresh data yes, it will automatically refresh the records of the related active records. So I select this one. Now I have options here, and I clicked confirm event, automatically confirm this one. And if I had speakers, related speakers, it will show me the info here. But I think we don't have any related speakers for this one. Now let's the same thing with copy event. Let's look at the copy event. This is my copy class. It's very similar to confirm. I have main method here. Also, I have args for event table. But in run, we created a dialog. This dialog is a framework I use to create a user interaction and get information from user. I add a dialog field to here. I didn't use event ID in this extended type set array, because if I used event ID, it will create automatically a lookup, and it will not allow me to create new ID. So I used a string and create a new label for that, and I pointed to a dialog field, and after I run the dialog, if dialog is closed with OK, I can get this one, this field value, and I used buff to buff functionality. This buff to buff copying all the fields to one table buffer to another table buffer. And when I copy, it will copy all the fields. So I need to change this one, event ID and event status. Then I insert the new record, and then I select the old event speakers, and also I used buff to buff to create new speakers for this event. Also, I changed the event ID with my new event ID. Also, I changed the status and insert the new records. These are the basic approach to develop new codes in X++. So we have a very strong object-oriented language here. It has lots of features, and framework does lots of things for us. For example, if you work with Java or C#, you will notice you need to do lots of things if you don't use any framework. But in Dynamics in X++, the framework does lots of things for us, and it's easy to focus on your application, your requirements, because lots of validation or these kind of things done by framework, so you don't have to worry about them too much. So let me check the question screen. Okay, I think there's no more question, and the next session time is coming. Raz,
thank you so much again, Fatih, for the impromptu extra 1 hour for your session today. But no I think problem. It was highly valuable.
Thank you for me to have this kind of opportunity. Also, I like teaching, so it's not a problem to tell these things. I can deep dive lots of different development subjects, but I don't want to lose focus. So I hope it was helping for our audience, and I hope they enjoyed it. Thank you very much again.
Well, there you go, guys. So make sure you reach out to Fatih if you are looking to get into FinOps development. Thanks again, Fatih. So yeah. So now, obviously, we are now